Good evening from New York. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Journeys. And CWS stands for Conversations with Selwyn. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, a special thank you. Welcome. Our guest tonight is a special man. His name is Ted Gustus Jr. And for those of you who are going to be meeting him for the first time, hold on to your seats. This is a gentleman I met recently, and he has a plan for transforming the hoods, as he called it. He spelled it as H-O-O-D-Z. One of the reasons why I invited him to come on the show is because CWS is about conversations with people about their journey and how they use their gifts and talents to help others. Helping others, empowering others, to me, is a better word. It's nothing strange to Coach Gustus, as he's called in the basketball arena. So I'll take a short break, and when I return, I'll introduce you to this very dynamic and charismatic gentleman. We are back with Coach Gustus. Well, you know what? Let's just, Ted Gustus Jr., let me just get right into it. You received the first New York State Senate Black Man of Distinguished Award, have been recognized by the New York Times, Daily News, CBS Sports, ESPN, BCAT, WBLS, Amsterdam News, Apollo, New York Newsday, New York Post, PBS Television for your community services in sports and being a community advocate, to name a few. How do you use this as a message to young boys? The significance of another young boy from Brooklyn who grew up to be so recognized.
Well, first of all, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm delighted to be here, and I've been waiting for this for some time, from the very first time we met. Well, for starters, I wanted to share with you about just a little bit about my life and how sports had impacted my life. You know, I came out of Brooklyn, New York, didn't know my father, till my mother passed away. Unfortunately, she passed away when I was about 9 years old. And from that point on, I was on this venture, on this voyage, of trying to find out who I am and what I do. Sports was introduced to me by a middle school teacher by the name of Barney Davis at Junior High School 57. And when he introduced me to sports, this changed my life, because not only did he teach me about the game of sports, but he also taught me about life. And he showed me how it related to sports. I didn't really play basketball. Actually, I was a singer. I sang in groups, got a chance to perform at Apollo and those type of things, when I was younger, during the amateur nights. And I really enjoyed singing. So when he introduced me in my sports, I was in the 9th grade, it was different. And I never forget coming out of the 9th grade, I had to make a decision of where I wanted to go to school. Either it was going to be Boys High in Bed-Stuy or Canarsie in Brooklyn. And I chose to go to Canarsie, and one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Canarsie is because it was a school that they were busing young black students to that particular school. So I wanted to get in the mix, back in the day. So it was one thing to go to a predominantly black school such as Boys High, which was a great basketball program, great coaches, great people that graduated from there. But it was another thing to go to a school where I thought I can really have an impact. So I started playing basketball in the 9th grade. While I was at Canarsie High School, I played basketball. I was really good at it. But I began to use that basketball as a tool to motivate young people in my community. And then that's when I got involved in coaching. So I started coaching basketball at the age of 17, 18 years old.
But I want to get to that.
Right.
Let me try and, one of the things I like to say is that each of us is a gem. And a gem has many facets. And oftentimes you meet someone and you only get a glimpse of one or two and, people form an opinion.
Right.
So what I like to do on this show is to twist the gem a bit and expose the different facets. So I want to go back. You said something very interesting. Your mom died at 9, when you were about 9, right?
Yes.
I want to ask you, what was it like growing up for you, 2 ages, 9 and 16? Give us a glimpse into your life when you were about 9, growing up in Brooklyn, your mom passed. What did that mean for you? And then let's...
Yeah, we are the sum total of everything that happens to us. And everything that happens to us is good, in my estimation, no matter what it is. My mother, when she passed, she had a struggle. She was struggling with alcohol. She drank a lot. And I was the one to actually find her dead on the floor. And she had a customary thing that she did when she would drink. She would roll off the couch, and we would just wake her up. She would listen to Sam Cooke's song, "A Change Is Gonna Come," which is a familiar song. And that was her customary thing. And we just wake her up and she'd get back on the couch. But this particular morning, she did not. And that song, "Change Is Gonna Come," was playing. So ironically, not only was it playing, but it actually was skipping because we had the 45 records back in the day. So it was a skip. And the skip was on, "A Change Is Gonna Come." So even today, I use those words in all of my speeches, wherever I go and talk. And what that was significant was that there was a breath of life that came out of my mom, but that one breath was breathed into me. So even in her passing, she brought life into her son, because the reason is because in my family there was so much challenges across the board because of the instability of not having the father there, or in and out. From what I heard, I'm the youngest of my family, and my mother having her challenges, and she did the very best she could with what she can do. But these are challenges where I had challenges in schools. I got left back in the 1st grade. 4th grade, I had my challenges there. And it took a teacher by the name of Mrs. Cannon. Mrs. Cannon was that one teacher when I was in the 5th grade. She saw something in me that was very, very special. And she told me about it. She said, "You are a leader." Now, mind you, I was creating all kinds of havoc in the school. Typical young boy coming from a troubled background, in a troubled community, in the hood. And this teacher, what I call him today, is a master teacher. She took everything that she could see in me and she brought it out, especially with my leadership. So I never forget that that year that she took over my class. She was assistant principal. The reason why she had to take over the class because we were behaving properly. Teachers could not handle this particular class. She comes into the class, and the very first thing she did, she knew that I was the leader of the delinquent behaviors. And she comes in and she says to me, she says, "Theodore, I'm going to make you the leader of this class." I'm like, what? She says, "First thing, I want you to play the role of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in a play in the auditorium during the assembly program." Now the school was like, "You can't let him do that. This kid is destructive and everything. That was the time that Dr. King got killed. So there was all sorts of riot things going on in the neighborhood and so forth. And I never forget, she allowed me to put the chalk in my hair, I still remember that time, to get up on that stage and to do the I Have the Dream speech in front of parents, students, teachers, everyone. And I delivered that speech. And it was a life-changing speech for me. This teacher took me under her wings, and that was the portion around the 6th grade. And I went, she let me go visit her home. When I went to visit her home out in Queens, I thought, wow, this is incredible. Imagine, here's a young man that lived in a railroad basement apartment. I mean, lived in a railroad. My apartment was so tough that we had, I had a dog named Shamrock, and she gave birth to 6 puppies. And I put them in the bathroom in the box, and I tell the story in my book. And when I went to see and care for the puppies, they were eaten by the rats that were in the apartment. And that picture is still there, you know. But it allowed me to understand my life as I began to go, but that I would lose so many different people. Mm-hmm. So after that, my mom passed away. My father came into my life, and he had a significant impact because that's what a father can do. Mm-hmm. I had negative thoughts about him because when you're not around, people are going to say some negative things about you, so you don't really know his side of the story until you meet him. Mm-hmm. And I asked, you know. And I forgave him. I never forget, I was 14, 15 years old, and I was stringing some string beans with my father. And I asked him about, you know, where was he and all that, and he told me. And for the first time, I put my arms around him, and I hugged him. And I said, Dad, I forgive you. Now here I am, 14, 15 years old. Didn't know what forgiveness was all about, but I knew that I had to do that. And my dad, I didn't see him cry because my arms was behind him, but I felt tears drop on my arm. So that point on, and then I go into high school and I meet another person, a master teacher, coach by the name of Barney Davis, and he introduces me to the game of basketball because I was one of those students that were running around doing behaviors that were not appropriate. So he introduced me to this game of basketball, and that was a life-changing experience because what he did is he took me away from my own community and put me on a team with predominantly white student athletes, which I never had because I was in a predominantly black community. So I had to learn a whole new different type of people and so forth. Lo and behold, I realized that they were no different than I was, you know, and they wanted the same things that I wanted, but just came from a different background.
If your mother were alive today, and you just happen to overhear her telling somebody something about you, what do you think she would say?
What she's always said to me. My mother used to say to me that, boy, you're going to be my lawyer. You're gonna be the one person there, because I'm the youngest. Mm-hmm. So I had some challenges, my older brothers and my older sister with drugs and the things in the hood that were devastating to a family, which was also devastating to many other families in the community. But my mother used to always tell me that I was smart and that I was going to be the lawyer because I always had the gift for gab to talk and so forth like that there. And when she used to come up to the schools, it was sometimes embarrassing because sometimes she would be drinking and so forth. Mm-hmm. However, when she comes up to school, the teacher used to say to her, your son is an intelligent, bright young man, but he just have challenges with his behaviors. He just can't seem to get that right. But once he gets that in, so she impacted me so much that when I graduated high school, I went on to John Jay College of Criminal Justice to pursue law.
Oh my gosh. What are most people surprised to know about you when they meet you, when they get to know you?
Well, I've had people tell me, because I'm always in a coaching mode
Yes.
when they see me, and when they see me, they kind of stand off. Can they approach me, or should they say something to me, or something like that? Because when you're a teacher, I've been a dean for school system for a long time, 37 years, and when you're a coach, there's always this look of seriousness. There's always this look of making things happen for our young people. But once you get to know me, then what they have said was, wow, I didn't realize that you so close to people, and you have this energy that really cares about folks, and you show it when you get to know them. So I would think that they would say, wow, when they walk away, that he cares.
Coach, you're a life coach. You're a basketball coach, or have been. You've transformed a lot of boys and young men's lives.
Right.
In that capacity, sometimes you have to assume the role of a father or a guardian, per se. Are you comfortable with that?
I've always been comfortable with
But let me ask you this. Your father did come back in your life, and you said you hugged him, forgive him, and you felt the teardrop in your hand. What is one thing, if you can remember, that he said or did that helped to transform your life, or impacted you in some way?
Well, I tell you, one thing about my father, when I got to know him, I realized that he was a no-nonsense guy. No nonsense. And then I began to understand why all the things that would take place. But one of the things is, he told me when I was younger, he says that I was going to grow up to be a man just like him. I'm like, what? Okay, what does that mean? And what it meant was that despite me being growing up with my aunt, my three sisters, and my mother and so forth, he wanted me to know that I was going to be a man just like him. And when you become a man, there's going to be issues and concerns that men have that's so different from women. And to me, that stuck in my mind, because then that's when I started working with young men, because I said, you know what? If I can teach young men about growing to be men, and many of them that are in the same type of situation that I was in, then that would be worth it. That, hey, you're going to be a man just like me. Let me show you how to be this man.
And what about mom? One thing that she said that still sticks with you.
Mom's, she always told me that I was going to be successful. Wow. She always told me, no matter what the conditions were, what was around me, she always told me I was going to be successful.
You know, I met you and your son a little while ago, and I was fortunate. It is just interesting that we're talking about fatherhood and sons. I was sitting there, right? I could let you tell the story, and I was fortunate to witness this exchange where you were teaching him something. I sort of eavesdropped the action and eavesdropped the words, and I couldn't help.
You were being nosy, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I couldn't help it. I said something to you, and that triggered a conversation.
Yes.
But before you talk about this whole conversation we had, how important was that for you to do that at that point with your son?
My son at that time was struggling with a decision that he has to make. Talking to someone else. And I wanted to express to him the importance that we communicate with words, gestures, and spirit. So what you were kind of chiming into was, I was sharing with him that you can communicate with your words, but if it doesn't line up with your gestures and spirits, then your words are no good. You can have gestures, and if it doesn't line up with your spirits and your words, they're no good as well. So I was sharing with him at that time to take a position. Make sure that all three of those are lined up when you're communicating with people and you negotiating with people. People have to feel your spirit. They have to see your gestures, and your words have to line up with those things. So it was just one of those moments that he and I have a conversation, which we have a whole bunch of conversations like that. And I have that with him. I have that with my daughters. I have that with many of the young men that I've had the opportunity to coach over my 42 years of coaching. And that is, these are the type of things that I was able to impart into their life.
How did fatherhood change you?
I was always on a mission to try to break a cycle.
Mm.
In my years of understanding my dad, understanding men, understanding women, I always tell people, if you walk into a person's house and you look in their library and they got business books and they got entertainment books, sports books, and they don't have anything on relationships and women and so forth, that means your interest is not in those people. Me being a father, I always wanted to break a cycle. And I shared that with my kids, is that in order for me to have impact and change the things that took place in my family life, I was going to create a family that I see the picture of, that I had a vision for. And that was a family where they know who their father is and so forth, like that there. And that he was there for them. And we was in agreement, you know, my wife and I, you know, in how we want to raise them. All of those things were the morals, the values, all those things were very important to me as a father, to be able to instill. Fathers are visionaries. They should have a vision for their family. They should have a vision for their children. They should have a vision for themselves. And my goal as a father has always been to have that vision for a family. And I needed to break a cycle. And that was a cycle of, you know, people not being there for their families and so forth.
Coach, what led you in this direction of writing, coaching, and transforming lives?
My sister and I often talk about abandonment.
Mm.
I told you about my puppy.